It's commonly held that your cloud bill is simply you paying for what you use, which is adorably naive. Folks who've been doing this for a little while believe instead that you're being charged for what you forgot to turn off. But for most folks who are here in the room, we know the truth, and that is that your cloud bill is a function of how many engineers your company has hired. That's how we tend to see things. I am Corey Quinn. I'm the chief cloud economist at the Duckbill Group, where I fix very interesting AWS bills for reasonably large companies. So I spend an awful lot of time going very deep into bills, which probably explains the dead look in my eyes that some of you share. I'm going to be making witty observations and interrupting my AWS-based co-presenters with, observations, jokes, inappropriate commentary, etc. Bowen.
So accurate cost reporting and reliable cost estimation will give you the confidence you need in understanding your cloud investment. My name is Bowen Wang. I'm the Principal Product Marketing Manager for AWS Cloud Financial Management portfolio of services. I'm always looking for ways to help customers and partners like you to discover and learn more about our tools and resources so you can leverage them to better manage and optimize your spend.
And I'm Matt Burke. I'm a Principal Technical Account Manager, and I lead our technical field community for Cloud Financial Management. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. So in this session, Bowen, Corey, and I are going to talk through some practical tips and new tools to help you gain better insight into your AWS cost and usage. And we want to make sure that the cloud bill that you pay matches the business outcomes that you want to achieve.
So you are here for a breakout session about Cloud Financial Management. So what is Cloud Financial Management, just so we're on the same page? Cloud Financial Management, also known as CFM, is a domain that helps you understand your cloud investment, help you achieve the cost efficiency target you set for your organization, and be able to also understand how you can drive other business values from cloud investment. So it's fundamental throughout your cloud adoption journey. Specifically, with AWS Cloud Financial Management tools and services, we help you better plan, analyze, govern, and optimize your AWS spend. Organizations with mature cloud financial management practices can often deliver business outcomes with lowest possible cost, improve their profitability while reducing business risk. It can also evolve from just pure cost-saving exercise to be more holistic cloud efficiency program.
It's always good to figure out who a talk is aimed for in the same style of you must be at least this tall to ride. If you're a relatively small company or a relatively uncomplex organization, this talk is probably not going to have a whole lot in it for you. We're talking about complicated companies with interesting problems, and everyone just sort of sighs and says, yeah, I'm in the right place. Cloud financial management maturity encompasses an awful lot. And today what we're going to be talking about is two of the key pieces of how to approach these things. We're going to talk about some of the fascinating areas of a few of the newly released CFM enhancements and services that have come out, and ideally to help you gain better insights from your AWS cost and usage data and provide you with an easier and more accurate planning process. And we all know it starts with the CFO saying, Amazon, how many books are engineers buying? I don't see them reading all that much. And how you evolve that from there to where most of us aspire to be. I said we're going to be talking specifically about a few things, and one of them is the benefits of operating in the cloud, and that is access to data, ideally yours. You need clean and meaningful cost and usage data in order to understand and then analyze your spend. Otherwise, you're guessing, which if you're going to do that, try to sound confident. When you think of your AWS cost reporting and estimations, you're probably covering a few things, like your objectives. What is it you're trying to do here? Maybe track ROI or drive FinOps culture, whatever the hell that means. You might have to present this to various people. Who are they? Are they finance? Are they business? Are they those insufferable people in engineering from whence I come? At what level? Are we talking about reporting or planning? At the cloud provider level, at the business unit, at your organization, the project, heaven help you, the SKU level, which is the path to madness? And how often do you do that? Weekly, monthly, annually, on demand? Continuously is a common buzzword that just means it takes a while. Figure out what you're trying to do.
Yeah, from our experience working with many of you, we found that cloud cost is usually done from the top-down approach, right? And cost estimation is best done using the bottom-up approach. So in a cost reporting space, if you are business leaders, sometimes you may just be interested to know cloud spend at cloud service provider level or SaaS level, right? If you are finance managers or FinOps practitioners, you want to understand costs at each payer, organization level, and also understand maybe cost at the project and cost center level. And if you are IT or application owners, you want to understand how well your team are utilizing cloud technology at granular resource level. So we're going to take a look how you can peel that onion layer by layer.
And then when it comes to the cost estimation side of things, you're actually going to want to take a bottoms-up approach, like Bowen said. You're actually going to want to look deeper into your individual service level or estimate things at more likely the project, application, or the divisional business unit. And you actually need to talk to your application owners and your senior leaders, I know, to get better understanding into future growth drivers, their pipelines, and even understanding what potential business changes are going to happen within the next year. And doing that regularly is going to make sure that you're going to minimize cost surprises, increase the accuracy of your cost estimate, and improve the trust throughout the organization into the accuracy of your cloud forecast. So we're going to be using this triangle here to step from the top down for the cost reporting, and then at the end from the bottom up for the estimation. So now we're going to start to dive into our tips, best practices, and the new tools that you can use to take advantage of them. So our first tip starts at that top cloud services provider level, in this case, AWS. Your director asks you to break out your charges between your public cloud and your SaaS providers. And without just looking at the numbers on all of your invoices, how can you ensure that you're comparing apples to apples? So the first thing you do is you download all the raw billing data from all of your providers, and you take a look and you realize that these are all in different formats. So it's up to you to decide, how to normalize these things. And first thing is just to understand the billing data itself, how to analyze it, and how to get those queries working properly. And then once you start to bring things together, you start to realize you have to make those decisions. Now, how do I bring, the reservations from one provider to another? How do I normalize that? How do I take the service mappings for different SKUs from compute, networking, and storage and map them commonly? How do I interpret unblended costs from AWS to actual costs elsewhere? So once you bring this all together, you analyze it, you present it to your stakeholders, how can you be sure that this normalization is accurate? So the common problem here is how do we unify all of this? How do we get the cloud providers to agree on, anything?
Yeah, the last thing they agreed on was that they all like money. From there, it's sort of scattered everywhere. And the answer to a lot of this is focus. How many people here have heard of it before? Awesome. This is the FinOps Open Cost and Usage Specification, which someone tortured into an acronym. It is an open source project that is supported by the FinOps Foundation and provides a single standard for all cost and usage cloud billing data that is to follow. So the idea here, a workable one, is that you have to learn one data schema instead of trying to collect them all like they're Pokemon or something. The goal is that every provider you use, presumably if you're in this room, including AWS, call it a hint, since you're here, provides you with a file in Focus format so that you can aggregate, query, and visualize all this stuff easily and in a similar way.
So Focus 1.0 went GA in June this year, and at the same time, we released a preview of our Focus 1.0 export with AWS columns. So this week, we've announced the general availability of Focus 1.0 with AWS columns. What does that mean? It means you can now develop a Focus file, bring it to an S3 bucket of your choosing, and that's going to include all of the 43 standard columns defined in the Focus specification, and 5 AWS-specific columns, including line item usage,
which is important because usage type in AWS is the index billing dimension. If that doesn't work for you, you're going to have a bad time.
And then we've also improved in this general availability the data accuracy of this file so that it's ready for your production pipelines. We've done updates to things like accuracy for tag prefixes and for service level mappings. And we've also validated that this file meets more of the Focus 1.0 requirements. So you have a Focus file. Well, what do you do with that? Well, the easiest way to get started is by using our pre-built Focus dashboard for QuickSight. And this is going to allow you to quickly get an executive summary in that file format of your costs, and it's a good starting place to start to customize a dashboard for your needs. And then if you want a further deep dive, you can use Amazon Athena to query the file. And we actually have some pre-built queries in the Focus format for you to look at the Kerr query library, which is available at the wellarchitectedlabs.com site. We also have some queries there for Kerr 2.0, and we're adding more all the time. Then finally, if you already use a third-party BI tool, you can just export that file and bring it over there.
So our next tip in the cost reporting space is to teach you how you can maintain that holistic overview of your organization and pay attention to key areas of importance. Right, the cloud accessibility has made advanced technologies readily available for your organization without requiring you to have specialized knowledge or investment on those specialized hardware. But whether you can achieve your business targets still requires you to understand how to maintain the holistic overview.
You cannot pretend it's the olden days anymore and try and be the department of no, which is what we call professionally annoying. It doesn't work anymore. These things are going to happen in your environment. You aren't going to be able to control it. You're certainly not going to be able to stop it. So what you have to aim for is being aware of what's going on and keep abreast of those changes, ideally before you are asked about them.
So for that organization overview, you can start with AWS Bills page, where you can get quick snippets of information. How much have I spent this month versus last month? How much have I been charged by service or account?
It's worth noting that even now, the single best place to get a holistic view of everything that you're running in your AWS account or AWS organization is and remains the billing page. Because remember, this is FinOps. If you aren't paying for it, does it really exist?
Now, to understand whether your organization is doing well cloud financial management-wise, you want to access AWS Billing and Cost Management Console. Here, you will see a lot of highlights of your cost and usage data and get information such as how well my cost and usage data has been labeled with cost allocation tags or cost categories. And you can access cost savings opportunities. So we want to call out the cost monitor widget, which is typically located at the top right corner, unless you have customized the layout of this page. So within the cost monitor widget, you can get budget alerts for when your cost and usage has exceeded your budgetary limit and cost anomaly detection alerts. So a few quick words on AWS cost anomaly detection. The service leverages Amazon machine learning technology. It analyzes your historical data, calculates the expected daily spend, and compares it with the expected spend. So when the actual spend has exceeded the expected spend beyond a certain threshold, it will identify this as anomaly spend and give you root cause analysis. And very recently, we've improved the root cause analysis for AWS cost anomaly detection. So it now identifies for up to 10 root causes for each anomaly that is above $1. So it analyzes each combination across region, accounts, service, and usage type, so you can quickly pinpoint which one of these is the most significant driver for your anomalous spend.
We see here one talking about CloudWatch, and if I see a sudden spike in the CloudWatch bill, my default naive assumption is, oh, something just got excessively chatty in the logs somewhere, we should run that down. But getting a little bit more exposure shows instead that since we're seeing dashboards spun up along with custom metrics, someone is instead taking a different approach to observability, which both informs what I'm going to talk about as well as where I'm going to go looking.
So the democratic nature of cloud resources has leveled the playing field for small and large businesses and for everyone within your organization teams from different locations can access and share resources in real time. So our third tip in the cost reporting space is to let your users have the right level of cost visibility so they are more aware of the cost incurred by their cloud adoption and start to identify cost savings opportunities. But we understand you probably do not want every user in your organization to access your billing and cost and usage data or even sometimes tax information. This is for information protection and security reasons. So with granular AWS identity and access management permission control, you can have this granular access control to the specific cloud financial management tools and services. So for example, some people might just need to see the saved cost explorer reports. Others want to create and modify budgets. And maybe for some teams, they just want to access right sizing and purchase option recommendations.
It used to be all or nothing, which led to some really unfortunate outcomes, where you would have people who were empowered to spin up clusters costing $20,000 an hour, but they weren't allowed to see that that was what they had just done. Surely that's going to end well. So now this lets you get a lot more granular while balancing the needs of your organization. You ideally want to aim at giving your users as much visibility into what is going on vis-a-vis the consequences of what they've done as you possibly can, because the worst approach is the spin it up and guess and hope for the best, which we've seen before, doesn't end very well for anyone.
So let's say you are in charge of your cloud usage cost, and you also have access to AWS Cost Explorer. Right? The visual graphs and the flexible filtering and the grouping by options allows you to zoom into any particular areas of interest. In this example, you look back of your costs in the past quarter, trying to understand how much you have spent per service, right? You notice that Amazon RDS seems to cost you a lot, roughly about $2,500 for each month. And to understand what has been driving your Amazon RDS cost, you need a slightly granular view, right? So you switch from monthly to daily and using Amazon RDS as the service filter option and a group by usage type. So now you have a much more granular cost breakdown. You understand how much you've been spending on specific Amazon RDS instance, in what region, or if you're still paying for extended support fee if your Amazon RDS instance are still running on the old MySQL or PostgreSQL engines. And in the same view, you notice that on the first of each month, there's a cost spike, about $400 in the AWS Singapore region. So Corey, what do you think that is?
I mean, it's possible that someone does what I swear I'll do on the first of every month. This is it. This is the month where I'm going to finally learn what a database is and how it works. And then I realize, oh, it's harder than I thought, so then I turn it off again until next month. But we know that that's not true, because when's the last time anyone met an engineer who was good at turning things off when they were done using them, up to and including the light switch?
So to understand what cost is, you simply switch from grouping by usage type to charge type. And you realize that the recurring cost is the recurring fee for your Amazon RDS reservation. So now you know Amazon RDS has cost you the most. You start to wonder if there are any cost savings opportunities for you. And for that, you want to access AWS Cost Optimization Hub, where we consolidate, quantify, and deduplicate cost savings opportunities for your entire organization. When you access the Cost Optimization Hub page, you notice there's about $1,000 worth of cost savings opportunity, and a big portion of that is exactly RDS Reserve Instance recommendation. And when you click on this recommendation, you will see details about what specific Amazon RDS instance, in what region, and estimated cost savings.
It's worth pointing out as well that when you see this, it's okay, that seems like it's a big expand. Maybe we're going to turn some stuff off. I get it. Everyone asks those questions. So great. Don't buy it all. Buy a portion of it and then revisit next month. Smaller incremental purchases spread out over time gives you a lot more optionality and granular ability to shift spend rather than, well, what architectural changes are we going to make in the next 3 years because we're about to make the triannual purchase. It's not pleasant for anyone, and it basically gives away a huge part of the benefits of being in the cloud in the first place.
So for sure, commitment purchases are great ways to save for predictable and constant usage. But what about those resources you've once spun up and are not actively using
Most
anymore?
people call that production, in my experience. When we leave a room, like an engineer leaving the lights on, Same approach can happen with AWS resource usage, which should come as a surprise to approximately none of you, even the people working the lights and sound, like, oh, AWS, that thing that you leave on and costs money forever. Yes, exactly. In your testing environments, you might frequently launch and then terminate EC2 instances, but forget to delete the EBS volumes that were attached, and by extension, then the snapshots thereof. The problem there is that those things still exist and obviously continue to incur cost. Identifying idle resources is a top ask by management, and it's often a very difficult one, because if you don't turn something that isn't being used off, it just costs money. If you turn something off that shouldn't be turned off, it might cost you your company. So it's only money becomes a non-sarcastic thing you can say in those circumstances. Because those asks are often not clear as to where the answer goes, and also potentially disastrous to get wrong.
So underutilized resources can definitely lead to unnecessary costs. And therefore, we always advise you to have a habit to regularly clean up your idle resources. And to help you identify all the idle resources in your organization, we are very happy to announce the general availability of idle resource detection and a cleanup recommendation available in AWS Compute Optimizer and AWS Cost Optimization Hub. So for each resource type, we work with AWS service teams to define what idle means. Let's say for EBS volume, if a volume is not attached to any EC2 instance for more than 32 days, it's pretty idle and unattached. And for each idle resource detection, we also send you a cleanup recommendation. And maybe in this case, snapshot the volume and delete it. So in the AWS Cost Optimization Hub, you will find idle resource detection and cleanup recommendations, right sizings, and purchase option recommendations. Another benefit of AWS Cost Optimization Hub is the delegated admin. So without giving out your payer account access, as a delegated admin, that person can access all of the cost savings opportunities within your organization and will be able to prioritize those cost savings recommendations based on implementation effort, estimated cost savings amount, or zoom into a specific usage type for them to pay attention to first.
Now, it is 2024 still, barely the end of it, so we are legally obligated to include generative AI in every conference talk at least once. This is that moment. So, without any setup or previous knowledge of Cost Explorer, a state we've referred to as happy, you can ask and get your cost analysis questions answered in natural language by this particular expression of Amazon Q. You can access it anywhere in the AWS console, frequently by accident. You can access it when you're creating an RDS database and then get a quick pulse check on what your RDS spend is. You can perform many basic analyses, such as month-over-month cost changes, cost drivers, or what instance types were causing you the most pain. And then, this is my personal favorite part of it, it will give you a deep link into showing that view in Cost Explorer to save the 30 to 45 seconds of clicking through all of the drop-downs and getting it the way that we want to every single time we use it.
And if you have used a previous preview version for cost analysis powered by Amazon Q Developer, with this general availability release, you can now ask questions for future cost. Tell me about my spend in 2025 Q1. You can ask questions about your cost categories. Tell me how much have I spent last month on cost category department. You can also ask questions about cost allocation tags. Tell me about how much have I spent in September for cost allocation tag my application, value my web application.
So our next tip is you can't hit a target that you can't see. And oftentimes we see organizations set these top-down goals, but you don't have access to actually see how you're tracking those. Now, it's nice to get a monthly or weekly report, but without near real-time insight into how you're doing, it's going to be hard to see the results as soon as possible of the impact of your individual actions when you go to optimize your workloads. So to build any KPI, you need to start with the data sets. And if you've set up cost and usage report a long time ago, you may not have seen the new data exports experience that we launched last year. And with data exports, you can choose between a variety of granular data sets, which we'll talk about in a moment, but you can also customize those data sets to your needs. So if you wanted to filter down the cost and usage report to just a subset of accounts in your organization, now you can. If you wanted to filter it down by tags, now you can. And if you wanted to select or unselect the columns within the cost and usage report, now with data exports, you can. And either way, you're going to get the most detailed information about your AWS cost and billing at hourly resource level granularity.
There are 3 types of data sources for AWS spend data. I mean, technically 4 if you want to count oral tradition, but that's hard to run a SQL query on. The cost and usage report 2.0. You've got Focus with the new AWS column support, and Cost Optimization Hub, which is not a switch because when it comes to the bill, the entire thing is a collision domain. That joke's for my networking people.
So the easiest way to start to build a KPI that people can track is to have a custom dashboard. And the easiest way to do that is to use our one-click deployment for the cost and usage dashboard within the data exports page. So that's going to give you a one-click deployment of a cost and usage dashboard that's based on the new CUR 2.0 standard. And it's going to give you a template that provides you with insights into commonly asked cost questions, such as your cost grouped by services like compute, storage, data transfer. It's going to give you insights into monthly trends into your amortized or invoiced costs. And then you can then edit that, save it as an analysis, and then republish it as your own personal custom dashboard. But that is actually only the beginning, because the cost and usage dashboard that we deploy via data exports, that's inspired by the Cloud Intelligence Dashboards, which is an open source framework that provides our customers with actionable insights and optimization recommendations at enterprise scale. Now, I know that a lot of you already have these deployed in your environments. And for those that don't, for those that think this is new, we have CloudFormation templates to deploy this very easily. And now it's backed by the new CUR 2.0 standard. So if you already have these deployed, you might not have noticed that we've been updating them regularly as well. So in the new Kudos 5.5 version, we have new DynamoDB reserved capacity recommendations, as well as AWS config optimization opportunities. And this whole Cloud Intelligence Dashboard suite covers a lot of different variety. So we have the Kudos dashboard, very popular for usage analysis. We have the pre-built KPI dashboard, so you're trying to figure out where to start on building KPIs. You can set some goals that we recommend. And we have the cost optimization recommended actions dashboard, or CORE for short, as well. Now, if you have all of your dashboards updated, if you have all of them deployed, we're actually releasing new ones all the time, including some that we've recently announced.
One of the ones that I'm a big fan of is the Graviton Savings Dashboard. For whatever reason, AWS has been reluctant to trumpet just how massive the cost savings are, so I'm going to do it instead because they're not the boss of me. This helps you join a bunch of CUR data, other pricing data, and the resource inventory you've got to quantify very directly in your environment what the Graviton opportunities are across the services that support it. EC2, which takes a little bit of work, but also RDS, OpenSearch, and Elasticache, which is a little bit more effort, but not much, then click the button already. You should do it. Now, what if you want to access and analyze data across multiple AWS organizations? Well, who would do that? Someone sophisticated, I'm sure. So you want to do this for a variety of reasons. Maybe you're asked to aggregate all of your existing use, or you have a contract renewal or negotiation coming up, and you want to make sure that you're talking about the same thing. With data exports, you're able to automate the creation of those to an Amazon S3 bucket and then replicate that data to a centralized, dedicated data collection account. That way, you can look at all of this in one place with Athena, QuickSight, or a box of crayons in the wall of your office, depending upon your implement of choice.
So KPIs are great ways to motivate for the right behaviors you want to see in your organization. But what works even better is to let your teams pay for their own cost. So our fifth tip in this space is to let your teams to be accountable of their spend through a showback and chargeback process. And a transparent showback and chargeback process links cloud resource consumption to expenses. So your teams are no longer just being evaluated of how well you're utilizing the resources, but they are financially responsible for their spend.
Whether they like it or not. So who is this for? Who is going to have a lot of strange structures like this? A whole bunch of different folks, large enterprises, resellers, companies where your board has gone adventuring yet again in the world of mergers and acquisitions. Maybe you have a large range of businesses, or maybe you're a scrappy startup that has gotten far too ahead of yourselves when it comes to account structures. This part's for you.
Now, these organizations can use some help. What if there's a way you can group your accounts according to your financial reporting structure and can configure the pricing to reflect the true cost for end teams? So with AWS Billing Conductor, you can group your accounts belonging to the same business entities, for example, cost centers. If you have already intentionally done so with AWS Organization Unit, you can grant permissions to AWS Billing Conductor to import Organization Unit as billing groups. And when you configure pricing rules, you can add a markup or discount to share cost or benefit. These pricing rules can be set up at all up level, service specific, billing entity, or at the skill level. The new rates after pricing configuration are called performer rates. Performer rates are great in terms of driving effective communication between your central IT Cloud Center of Excellence team and the business teams. So everyone understands there is a cost implication of their cloud resource consumption.
Please, go ahead.
You can keep those performer rates constant, or you can change them periodically to any changing pattern or your organizational priorities.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out, because I was unclear at first, but I did some research. Pro forma is a Latin expression that means we made it up, and you should too. If you look at your company, you can modify behavioral decisions through cloud behavioral economics by adding incentives. For example, you want to run this old instance type that we don't like to run? Terrific. We're going to charge you a 20% markup on that for being annoying.
Well, in addition to pricing plans, there's another feature you can use within AWS Billing Conductor, which is custom line items, which allows you to more intentionally share cost or benefit. Right? Many of you have used custom line items to share costs such as enterprise support fees, reserve instance and savings plans benefit, or sometimes non-AWS cost.
Be aware that you can call these line items anything that you want, and they will show up to your internal customers. So I suspect I'm probably going to need a better term or euphemism for my being annoying surcharge.
Now, after you are done with billing groups structuring, pricing plans, and custom line items, you can now start to delegate cost management at the billing groups level. So those primary accounts within the billing groups will have cross-account view of all the member accounts belonging to that billing groups. And those views will be at the performer rates, so they can help manage and optimize spend. And with the recent launch between AWS Billing Conductor and the rest of the cost management tools, your member accounts can also independently manage their spend at a performer rate, such as visualize costs in Cost Explorer, download current reports, or maybe look at reserve instance and savings plans performance reports.
Showback and chargeback processes provide teams with a semblance of cost transparency, and it establishes accountability, which is the polite word for it's their fault, for each department. So how about taking it one step further and letting your cost center pay for their own part of the AWS bill? Some of you with multiple business entities used to either create an entirely separate AWS organization for each business entity, so you can receive it separately, or you were going to manually split the charges from your invoices and allocate it to that designated business entity. Either way, it was extra work for you.
So to save you time from manually splitting invoices, but instead making it a standardized process, we just launched this past Sunday AWS Invoice Configuration. So invoice configuration allows you to receive separate invoices for member accounts belonging to the same billing entities, subsidiaries, cost centers, or departments. And while those member accounts are still part of the same organization. So this means you can still leverage the benefits of consolidated billing, such as volume discounts, but instead of having your payer account to pay for all the expenses, those business entities can now start to manage their invoice and the payments independently. So to do this, you will create an invoice unit with member accounts belonging to the same business entity, designate an account within the invoice entity to be the invoice receiver. You can then optionally associate purchase orders with one or multiple invoice units to help you track the funding of those business entities separately.
I'm going to be using this personally to achieve my long-held dream of one day paying my AWS bill entirely with a dump truck full of nickels.
So now we're going to move on to another level down the stack, to the project or business unit level. And typically we get to that level in the form of cost allocation tags. And our best practice here is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, every time I talk to someone about their tagging coverage and strategy, they get this hangdog sad look on their face. There's a support group for that. It's called Everyone, and we meet here at reInvent. If you're at a 70% tag coverage of your resources, you're doing significantly better than most. It is extraordinarily unlikely you're going to be able to achieve perfection here, so don't try. And you shouldn't necessarily strive for that anyway. I mean, don't be the IRS where you're spending $10,000 to track down the last 50 cents. If you happen to work for the IRS, please disregard what I just said. Keep doing you. I'm not going to mess with you. Now, there are a bunch of challenges here while I'm playing these games. The first is that I have tags that my team has been using, but some jackhole never activated them as cost allocation tags. So if you ever manage to do something so flagrantly irresponsible, it's okay. Back in March, AWS launched the ability to apply retroactive application tagging for up to 12 months, which is awesome. So as long as that tag was on a resource back then, you can add the cost data on AWS's side through a backfill request, which is a term of art at AWS that means talk to your account manager. That's what they're there for. Secondly, how do you start to aggregate and group these tags together? You might have multiple cost centers that make up a division or an application that spans more than a few IDs. The number of tags can start to make analysis even more complex. And third, of course, there's the idea of tag compliance. Tags are case sensitive, so I know many of you and also me have multiple cost allocation tags just with different casing. I have two tags for project, one with a capital P and one without because past me was annoying. How do you clean all of this up when you need that data for historical reporting? And finally, if folks are using the same resources or consuming a shared service, how do you split that out without resorting to Lord of the Flies?
So the answer to these problems is actually an often overlooked service called AWS Cost Categories. We're so consumed with looking at things from a resource and tag-based allocation method that we can actually group these costs together using a rule-based allocation. So let's take an easy one. You want to create a cost category so you can group together all those uppercase and lowercase tags that are really just the same value. So now when you want to see all your tags by app ID, those categories aggregate them together. Another example, you can create a cost category for business unit, right? So you can group your relevant accounts or tags by rules to break down the category for the individual divisions. And by doing this, you're actually going to propagate that cost category throughout all the cost management and billing services. So now if you just wanted to dive into Cost Explorer and see engineering's usage, go to the cost category, and now you can. If you wanted to query your cost and usage report file for just marketing's applications, you can go to the cost category and you can. If you want to set a budget against your HR systems and AWS budgets, you can. And then if you wanted to set up cost anomaly detection to monitor all that BU spend, you can use the cost category.
So how do you create a cost category? It's a good question. I'm glad I asked it. First, you build the category. In this example, for project, for example. You define what rules will categorize each one, whether that's a set of accounts, a set of tags, or other billing dimensions like service or usage type. And then you name any cost that would be uncategorized, in this case, just other cost. Before you finish creating it, in a delightfully refreshing departure from the usual way these things work, you can see a real-time display of how that would reflect on your billing data to avoid the whole guess and check back and forth thing. Looking at so far this month's amortized costs. So if it looks good, you can specify the look-back period to backfill it into Cost Explorer and the cost and usage report. It's awesome.
Our seventh tip is to cover your fair share. And oftentimes we see customers hold their shared costs with central IT rather than distributing them equally, proportionally, or at a fixed rate across their environments. And that can lead to a lack of optimization because I, as an app owner, aren't seeing the true costs of what I'm running within my organization. So for these shared costs, cost categories can also help out here. It can help you calculate split charges to allocate back to the different categories, like for example, the business units or projects. So you can split something that's shared, like your AWS support charges, either proportionally, evenly, or at that fixed percentage across. Now, I want to make a big disclaimer here. This feature is just a calculation tool. So you'll see a report on the cost categories details page. You can download a CSV. You can share it with your stakeholders. But it's not going to impact the other billing cost management services, unlike all the other cost categories features. So you won't see this split charge and Cost Explorer occur, et cetera. But I think this is a really good starting place for things like Showback if you're just crawling in your environment. Now, for some specific services, if you want to split things out, we can go way deeper than this.
How many of you are familiar with split cost allocation data? Okay, if you're raising your hand, you have that haunted look in your eyes. You're my people. This is being rolled out on a service-by-service basis as a way to provide more granular resource-level data into cost and usage data on the report. You turn this on at the organization level, and then you activate it within the AWS data export. And once it's applied, you can then aggregate your cost using tags based on service primitives. For example, ECS service or EKS namespace or things like that. You can also view your compute cost that's unused in order to identify optimization opportunities from a slightly different angle.
So split cost allocation data, or SCAD for short, is available for our two container services, ECS and EKS. So if you turn this on for ECS, you're going to get aggregate tag level cost in your cost and usage report by service, by cluster, and tags. If you turn this on for EKS, it's going to allow you to aggregate pod level costs incurred by your cluster, by namespace, by node, deployment, and workload. But when you go to configure this for EKS, you actually have some additional options because we can either split this cost data out by the allocation of your pod CPU or memory resources, or we can do it by actual utilization. So you have a couple options here. You either have Amazon Managed Service for Prometheus, or if you have the CloudWatch daemon running on your containers, you can actually take advantage of this new feature, which is Amazon CloudWatch Container Insights. So either of those is going to give you that real-time utilization data, mar it with your cost data, so we can enable better allocation of your shared clusters and give you better insights into those potential optimizations.
So our eighth and last tip is about cost planning. 451 Research conducted a survey for cloud organizations who spent $100,000 or more on cloud technology and found that 80% of them have exceeded their cloud budget in most of the month. 80% seems to be quite concerning, isn't it? But those additional costs above cloud budget can be associated with business growth or a result of inadequate cost planning. Right, so in order to improve the accuracy of your cost planning, you must have heard the terms shifting left. So this advises you to start engaging with your engineering teams or business owners early on in the process, or the business owners in their design process. So the cost element is being considered throughout the software design cycle and the business planning cycle. So you can also include all the factors that will affect your cloud budget.
And let's be real for a second. If you can take a workload that you've never run in the cloud before and tell me within 20% of what it's going to cost you, then whenever you get bored of doing whatever it is you're doing now, please talk to me. I have a job waiting for you. This stuff is hard. You're looking to be directionally correct with your estimates. You're not looking to be to the penny accurate. If that's what you're aiming at, you are spending way too much effort that can be much better spent somewhere else. Now, the benefit, well, one of the benefits of operating in the cloud is that you get constant, unrelenting access to your usage data. With the right reporting and metadata setup, That means that you can wind up with a clear view of what your usage baseline settles out as. But how can you make sure that you can properly translate business needs against that into cloud workload configurations? How can you improve the accuracy of that estimation by considering discount terms? And how you can also account for ongoing cost optimization initiatives?
So we've been listening to your feedback and expanded the capability of AWS Pricing Calculator. So we are very happy to announce the in-console enhanced AWS Pricing Calculator is now available as a public preview feature within AWS Billing and Cost Management Console. So if you have used Pricing Calculator in the past, if you have any existing workload, you had to manually gather details and manually input them as the baseline before you make any modifications. You also had to incorporate discounts on your own. This in-console authenticated pricing calculator experience gives you the opportunity to log in with your AWS account so you can import your existing usage or select a portion of your existing usage to make modifications, add new usage to get real-time cost impact analysis. You can also choose to run this entire bill computation and take into consideration of your workload changes and purchase option changes.
So what are some use cases for this newly enhanced pricing calculator? Well, the first one can be you're trying to estimate the cost of migrating a current workload that you have to a new region. You can import that cost and make that really quickly. You can also then quickly check at scale some potential optimization opportunities. Import an existing workload and say, hey, what would it cost to change my EC2 instances from Intel processors to AMD processors, and then instantly get that feedback?
And a game that I like to play that it seems that few people do for whatever reason is what if we had done things differently? We agonize, we hem, we haw, we wail, we gnash teeth, we rend clothes whenever it comes to making a commitment purchase. But what we don't tend to ever do after the fact and the purchase is made is go back and revisit it. And then again, when the cycle repeats, we do the same thing and we've learned nothing from it. It's a mistake. Learn from the past. Do the alternative scenario modeling. What if we had gone that other way? Do the difficult things more frequently and they become a lot less difficult. And whatever you do, don't use that as a blame casting exercise. Don't yell at people for not being able to predict the future. It's harder than it looks.
So next time you're looking to estimate changes to an existing workload that you have, you do not have to start from scratch within the pricing calculator. And then when you add that historical usage, you can pick a date range, like the last 30 days, and then you can further filter that down by region, by account, by service, by tag, by your new favorite service cost category. And then you can get a preview of that usage, allowing you to kind of tweak the filters and make sure you're importing exactly what you want. And once you import it, here's where the magic comes in, you can edit that existing usage. You can change the region that it's running in, the account, the usage type, or even the usage amount. And if you want to quickly estimate a change, like tweaking your EBS volume from GP3 to ST1, you can. Or if you wanted to just, look at future growth, bring up that usage amount, you can put that change in there as well.
Now, I also have it on excellent authority, by the way, that swapping one EBS volume type for another is, in fact, the absolute worst game of let's pretend that my children have ever played.
So after you're done, you can quickly see within the estimate what is net new usage, what is your existing usage, and what usage that you've modified. And all these workload estimates, you can choose for them to be either at the public pricing rate or at whatever discount rate that you have with AWS. So now that you're estimating all these future changes to your workloads, you start to think of that other question. Do I need to buy savings plans or RIs to start to cover all of this? And that is where the brand new bill scenario will come in. So just like when you create the workload estimate, you'll be able to import any existing usage, put in net new, and you'll be able to modify that usage. But it's also going to auto-import any RIs and savings plans that you might have within your organization.
Take it from me, you really do not want to do estimates that combine pre-discount and post-discount pricing in the same estimate. Trust me on this. The numbers don't make sense, and you will go insane.
So now looking at all these new changes, you can add net new commitments or tweak the existing ones or remove ones that you already have. And when you're ready, you can submit this into a bill estimate, and we'll calculate that potential bill based on this usage, the new commitments, and take it from there. So this is going to take either minutes or potentially hours, depending on how complex some of your bills are. But once you get the result, you'll have a bill estimate report like this that'll give you a breakdown of the differences between the historical usage you had and now the net new that you've calculated within the bill estimate. So this is going to give you that ability to quickly assess those what-if scenarios. Like, for example, if you're going to bring in a project that has these highly discounted large EC2 instances, you can see how that's going to impact your savings plan coverage. Or if you wanted to do that analysis to see, okay, I did 1 year no upfront savings plans this past year. What would it look like if I had done 1 year all upfront?
Speaking of understanding the cost impact of your savings plans, in the scenario where you don't have to incorporate workload changes, but just quickly want to understand how much you can save by trying a few different hourly commitment amounts, or if you want to edit the look-back period so the usage baseline is more intentional, or being able to visually understand just how those savings plans can be utilized, those eligible usage, well.
So, of course, you want to own your own destiny, right? You can simply take AWS Savings Plan's recommendation to maximize your cost savings. But you can also easily model your next savings plan's purchase with your own hourly commitment amount. You can use our newly launched Savings Plans Purchase Analyzer. You can try out different hourly commitment amounts and to understand its impact on cost, utilization, and coverage. So in addition to the flexibility for you to try out different hourly commitment amounts, you can also customize the look-back periods to the past 7, 30, or 60 days, or pick the specific dates you want in the past 60 days to include or exclude certain dates. You can also remove the soon-to-be expired savings plans in upcoming 90 days for you to try out different scenarios to prepare for renewal ahead of the time. So unlike the bill estimate we just mentioned with pricing calculator, you can simulate the entire bill run with collective cost impact from workload changes and purchase option changes. If you want to just get a quick cost impact analysis for your savings plan scenarios, so Savings Plan Purchase Analyzer is your tool. Once you're satisfied with your hourly commitment amount, put it in a shopping cart and purchase right away. But don't forget, you have the 7-day return policy, which means if you figure the purchase is an error or that's not for your business anymore, in the 7 days in the same calendar month, you can get full refund for your purchase. Detailed policies can be found in our documentations.
And I am devastated and sad to report that I've spent a fair bit of time going up one side and down the other of this analyzers, and I cannot find anything to mock or quibble about. I appreciate your emotional support in this trying time.
So we look forward to hearing how you can incorporate those new features in your cost planning cycle, right? We've covered a lot today. We talk about how you can report at the aggregated level all the way to the resource granularity level. And we also recommended how you can do cost estimation using the bottom-up approach so you can capture most of the factors that will affect your cloud budget. It is time to summarize everything. So in the cost top-down approach, you have the data exports in the focus format, allowing you to normalize cost and usage data across cloud service providers, SaaS providers. If you want to understand the health of your organization's cloud financial management practices, you want access billing in the cost management console and use Cost Explorer to do analysis. We have a variety of cloud intelligence dashboards powered by QuickSight for you to explore. If you want to download data, you can use AWS Data Exports, and for you to find any cost savings opportunities, such as idle resource detections, right-sizing, and purchase option recommendations, you want to access AWS Cost Optimization Hub.
To properly allocate data back to stakeholders, you can logically group data using cost categories. You can distribute the cost of shared resources using split cost allocation data, and charge back with your own pricing rules with Billing Conductor, and let/force your cost center or business unit owners to take responsibility for their part of the invoices.
And you can now get real-time cost analysis for any potential workload updates using the new authenticated pricing calculator, which is also, again, going to count in any unique pricing terms you might have with AWS. And if you need whole bill estimation, you can also include the changes that you're going to have to your commitments or to your usage, and you're going to understand the cost impact with that bill estimate. And if you want to just quickly play around with the existing usage you have, what coverage model you should have from Savings Plan, the Savings Plan Analyzer is the place to go. And that's also going to give you, both with the net savings for purchasing that plan, the utilization, and the coverage as well.
We're going to trust that you will get familiarized with these tools if you haven't already. We also want to announce the launch of AWS Cloud Financial Management digital training. This is the free version, and it's way better than the very expensive version, which is, I'll just figure it out as I go along. It'll be fine. It consists of 4 courses that'll give you the ability to cover all of the fundamentals of FinOps practices, as well as deep technical cost optimization tips for most major AWS service categories. This is definitely the way you want to go because there's nothing more expensive than confidently blundering along by yourself.
So if you have questions, we can meet you outside in the lobby after the talk. But if you have to run, you can meet our CFM experts at the AWS Village Expo by the end of the day. And we also have swag that we're giving away there as well. So if you want a Cloud Financial Management wire organizer.
And who wouldn't?
Then that's the place for you. We've got a lot of them to hand out today.
We thank you so much for your time today. Have a great rest of your day.
And